someone asked me to do a parry guide, so I'm flipping this kind of quick. This is gonna be about Baiken's this move. What is interesting about this move first? So we have to differentiate it from a DP. Why do I differentiate parry from DP so much? So let's take this string. So this string is 5P and 6H. So it's Baiken's jab and the 6H. Because Baiken's jab is attack level 0, it's 9 frames of Blockstring. And this is a 20 frame move, so there's an 11 frame gap. This string is close slash 2H, right? Close slash is attack level 3, so there's 16 frame Blockstring. 2H is 17 frames, so there's a 1 frame gap. The important thing though, for a DP character, all these numbers don't mean anything at all. The only thing that matters, and I have the CPU set to block first only, so as soon as there is a gap, they will stop blocking. So the only thing that matters to a DP character is that the gap exists. So all that matters is that there's a gap, right? The numbers literally don't matter. And because of this gap, the interaction that's built is, while the two players are definitely interacting, it's a straightforward one. So how would I deal with DP, right? One way would be to keep them in block stun like this. So if he tries to DP, I can't do it, right? You just see me stand up. That's me trying to flash kick. 2 is attacking the input some way. So let's say I did like that instead. So I got hit because I used a 10 frame low and I tried to flash kick. Just that. Or I could go the hard bait route where I wait. So I wait, goodbye Leo. But then on the Leo side, if I do this, he can mash, right? He can do, which means I would have to follow. It's a pretty direct interaction because of this, right? Still an interaction where both players are like reading each other, looking at each other's resources and stuff. Where like if I have meter, there's stuff I could do off this, obviously instant overhead, stuff like that. If Leo has meter, the DP scarier because he can RC it. We're very familiar with the situation. Now we're on Baiken, so I'll have the same 2 strings again. So if I use the second string, it's going to work the same as the DP, right? Like there was a gap, I parried it. But the issue comes from the first string. If I mash parry, I die because parry is only 1 to 6. Not only that, if I even try to do, oh well, I did it too slow. Parry PRC, I tried to parry PRC also, still dead because I'm attacking after the. It's literally the perfect number, the perfect gap to hit both parry and the startup of PRC for parry PRC. So, thing number 1 about parry that's different is that you need to actually know how much space there is in between stuff, okay? Thing number 2 is something that we're also pretty familiar with, where if I use a reversal super normal DP of some sort, you know, this happens. So because of this, I would need meter to be safe or something like that, where parry, as we are also familiar with, you can't parry, you can't safe jump parry. So these are like the 2 main important things about parry that differentiate them, that differentiates it from a DP. And this move is actually a really interesting move if you like digging into the game, because you can use DP in every phase of the game. A reminder: neutral, blockstring offense, blockstring defense, and knockdown. And people are pretty familiar with these uses. If you want me to go into the uses for DP in each phase of the game, I could talk about that at a later time. The thing is though, when people talk about Baiken, they tend to only talk about it in 2 places. One is on knockdown, on how you can't do a standard safe jump to Baiken, which is correct. And it's definitely something that is hard to deal with, and you have to build a plan for that. And then 2, the other one that people complain about is that if you're a strike throw character, and this is like, be angry at me, it's fine. It's pretty overstated. I understand, but it's overstated, and it's one of the worst ways you can use parry on defense. Is that if you're a strike throw character, so I'm not gonna pretend Baiken is a strike throw character because she has the best throw in the game, so she has that aspect of you don't want to get thrown by her. If you're a strike throw character, you can't use like the kind of standard delay string because she can parry you for it, right? Those are the 2 main things people know about parry. So we, as usual here, we're going to go like this and not be baseline and really dig into this move. This move is really interesting. I keep learning more and more about this move and figuring out more and more about this move. So let's start with neutral applications first, right? So we'll go straight down. Neutral, Blockstring offense, Blockstring, no, we'll do in order. Neutral, Blockstring offense, Blockstring defense, and Knockdown. Let's say there was a situation. Pretty familiar with this, right? Right? I would say it's something that most people who play Guilty Gear Strive still have experienced at some point. A normal character, what do you do? Most characters, what do you do about that? As Baiken, you don't have to accept them doing these type of things to you. If Ram ran even farther, then the parry's gonna, the parry has a close and far catch box. So if she was even closer, I would parry her. Even anytime Ram has meter, so she just tries to pull up like that, you could give it a shot. You can give it a shot. So application number 1 is big reactable move RC. You can parry. There's a pretty big list. If you take some time to think about it, you can think about it by character. Which characters have things that you find annoying that they use to come in at you with RC, and you can parry them. Okay, but then the other thing that is pretty helpful would be something like this. So Ram also has like things to alter her air momentum, or that could just be generally difficult to anti-air in general, right? Like this. So what can fight this? Use parry. So I pushed her away because she was far, but there are plenty of examples of, let's say something more practical like this, right? This would certainly be difficult to anti-air, right? And if I wanna air throw it, hard, but if you know, you know. So those are probably your main neutral applications. Baiken then, if we're talking about specifically parrying things that are hard to deal with in the air, she has quite a large spread of anti-airs, because most people think this move's not that great, so you'd go for the air versus air. The air versus air, of course, is amazing return. This works out too, but then you also have parry and JD, and also situationally Yozan-sen. So you have a lot of options for anti-airs depending on the situation. So next we're going to talk about Blockstring offense. So there's one that's straightforward, and there's one that's like, oh, we're gonna get into it. So actually, no, I'm gonna do raw tatami, so let's say I use this move, I make you block this move. So tatami and H kabari are both -3, right? So one thing you could do as far as offensive offensive parry, is you do something that's disadvantage and you use your meter to confirm the situation. So you don't guess parry and then PRC. You PRC to make sure they're doing something, and then you parry. This can be hard though, because if they match immediately, then you can be hit out of PRC, or you might be like walking into them. Okay. I mean, you can do it the opposite way though. If you do parry PRC, it's like the old throw PRC where when you do the parry and press RC, the parry animation just happens, right? So you can use it that way. Both are fine. Both are fine. I would personally, though, I like seeing what they do, because while here is good, when you PRC at them, I don't know. It's my personal preference to PRC at them. The other one is a little bit more interesting though, and it actually ties into defense a little bit. Where let's say we have this on guard first only, right? So there's actually a gap. Some characters have like very small gaps built into their strings naturally, built into their gatlings naturally. Just like pressing as fast as possible, still a gap. Ino is one of these characters. Characters that have long 2Ks are pretty hard to deal with in -3 situations, right? Because if I do like this, at this range, I'm gonna hit her. So if I do it a little closer, I'm gonna get hit every time. Knockdown, Ino's happy, I'm unhappy. We don't like this. We don't like this. Some characters you can finesse their hurtbox, right? Hitbox and hurtbox. So I could do like this. Some characters, not all characters, some characters. But I used a pretty slow move here. I used 6K. So if Ino does 6P, then I'm screwed. Okay. But most people won't go to 6p that quickly. So I can hop down the rock, paper, scissors tunnel, or I can do this to hedge my bet, right? So instead, what if I did tatami and then blocked the 2k2d string, but because I know 2k2d has a 1 frame gap, okay, this is a conundrum for your opponent, because normally, like for example, normally I can't do this. Look, I'm gonna try to jump, can't jump away, right? If I backdash, she could chase me, and then we have that type of typical guessing game that exists. But this adds a really annoying guessing game for the person who is supposed to be the attacker, because I'm minus, which is I'm minus, and I literally give you a turn just to parry you. So now they have to start doing like single 2k to see, or do nothing. Like this is a very obnoxious way to like turn your negative offensive situation into a really stressful situation for your opponent. How you build this situation is up to you, because many characters have different tactics they use after they block this -3 move and this -3 move. But this is one of the main places you would use parry offensively, right? Because you're -3, so you're safe. The only time where you're not safe is if you're point blank for some reason. They IB'd or something, right? If not, they can't. No one has a 3-frame move that hits here. So you get to create some really interesting like situations based on your planning and your knowledge of other characters, which is really cool. Next, we're going to talk about the really fun one, which is defense. We are only going to be talking about block string defense right now. So point number one, and remember what I said before, is that the main usage of parry on defense that people think about is this thing, where people are like, oh, I can't use my delay string, and I have to like be really risky and use throw. While that is true, I think that is not that good of a use. It is one, and it's one you have to represent, but it definitely should not be your main one, nor should you rely on it to win games, outside of a couple exceptions. Why? One, what happens if you're wrong? Okay? You don't want that to happen to you. Baiken has a lot of guts, but not a lot, but her life is low. Like, she takes a lot of damage, so you don't want to be too reckless. Two, if we use the same example, we still have to consider the gap they're trying to make and what move are they using. So, and what character we're playing against. So, like a Baiken player, one string that is not commonly used by Baiken players is this and this. You'll usually see like this, probably the main one, right? But Kai players use this a lot, right? Soul players don't really use /2s, right? Everyone has the same Gatlings for the most part, but people use their Gatlings differently because the characters are just different, obviously. So we have to think about it first by character, but every character has to think about defense by character. That's the point. So in order to make our success rate with parry high and make it stressful for the opponent, what do we do? Well, step one would be you would want to learn where characters have guaranteed gaps in their strings, right? Ones where it's relatively low risk for you to use parry. Where when you're fighting Kyle, what do Kyle players do? They do this, they do this, they do this. Maybe they'll do this. You know, there's a lot of stuff they'll do. There's a lot of stuff they'll do that beats parry just naturally, just for them playing the game. But what about this string? Right? This is already, by the way, this is already a pretty hard string for Kyle to use against more advanced players, because you got to worry about IB. But then on top of that, it has a gap. So you have an extra layer against it. And sweep is like -10. So he's in a rough spot. He's going to do sweep nothing to you, where you're going to get a full combo. Like, you can make it very stressful for him in that way. Another one that comes up a little bit less, this one also has one. Okay, this one has one. You don't get the reject unless you IB some stuff. Like, let's say I get... Okay, so now he's close. So I don't expect people to actively try to IB that and be that greedy, but just denying him his ideal position is a good thing. So step one is you would definitely legitimately want to know every character's gaps to see if you can like get stuff from that, right? That's step one. Step two is what does that mean then? So you have to extrapolate the situation. So like I said with Kyle, this has a 1 frame gap, and it's not like he can use RC to get out of it. So he'd have to do some pretty wild stuff. He'd either have to use a different special move, because that would work. But you know, she has things to fix it. If he does nothing, then this move is -10 off the top of my head. So that's not a good look. So you can, using this guaranteed situation that we know, we could build out our options to make it hard for them to continue offense from that string, make it really stressful for them, make it hard to push their offense, and make them ideally want to avoid the situation altogether, which would be like kiss his fingertips, right? If you want another example of a character that has an issue like this, because to be fair, for some, you might be like, hey, I know there's a gap here, but it's really hard to act on this gap. How do I act on this gap? And I agree with you. It took me a while to figure out ways of how to deal with certain gaps that are guaranteed from characters. One that's really important is Leo Whitefang, and that's with his kicks. Kicks in the 6K is a pretty important one. 2K, 6K has a gap that can be 6P'd by some characters. 5K, 6K you can't. But these moves are pretty fast. Like this is pretty fast. This is even faster. So let's use this. This is pretty fast. This is really, really fast. In training mode, it's free, but you might have seen me in matches interrupt these two. How do I do it? So the logic is, if Leo is here, we don't care about this. When Leo is here and doing his I'm really good at footsies but not really LOL because my dash is broken, what I react to is the dash, and then I'm like, I use the dash to give me more time. The dash tells my brain kick is coming, so I have more time to confirm that kick is happening to parry the thing. So if I set a recording where, like, let's set a couple recordings to show, I mean, especially in training mode, this will be extra free. But I do this to characters pretty often. This is one way you can do it. Another way you can do it that's slightly less common is if the character has an approach that leads to a string with a gap, you give them the approach, see the beginning of the string, and then parry. That's another way you can do it. But the main idea again is you build a situation where you know the gap is small and there's nothing they can do about it, and then build your option set based off of that. If you know that character has something with a very large gap, then you don't, in my opinion, you don't want to try to put too much resource into targeting it unless they're going for it too much. So an example, probably the best example in the whole game is Gold Lewis. So Gold Lewis is a character where people are like, oh, parry destroys him. But Gold Lewis has a pretty interesting offense thing against Baiken, where he has the same thing that Baiken has against herself, where he has some strings that have like huge gaps, right? But if he hits your gap, you're dead. You're gonna take a huge bombo from him. So the strategy has to be adjusted a little bit from him. So what I decided personally is that, let's say, so this has no gap, right? Okay. So this gap is, so this hitting me out of jump means it is 6 frames or less. So immediate parry. Where like something like this, which is something that I've encountered, which means I'm dead, right? So my general strategy is actually to not parry his light moves, and if I'm gonna try to parry, it's only on moves with a lot of block stun, because since I know the startup of all his like behemoths, if he does close slash, either it's straight up airtight, like this is airtight, right, and plus, or there's a really small gap, like this, right? Some of them do this, and again, if I'm mashing, I'm dead, but this is a huge gap, so massive. You know, all sorts of stuff could happen. So there's a lot of interesting ways that you can try to build your offense-defense plan against this character based off that knowledge of he wants to keep you in Blockstring with really plus stuff, but he has to worry about you doing parry, so he has to do things that are slower to bait your immediate parry. So where do you want to put your attention to? Do you want to try to defend the fast stuff and then parry the slow stuff? Do you want to try to mash parry just because there's no gap or a very small gap? So if he does anything, you just get him. I don't do parry against his light buttons at all, basically, because everything has gaps, right? Like this. So, right. So all is like his jab, his 5k. I don't even bother. I don't even bother trying to parry any of those. Because not only are those behemoths fast, but like I just don't think it could be done. Like when I block his kicks and stuff, I'm just gonna hold it. When I block things like close slash and stuff, that's when I'm start being like, okay, I'll introduce stuff to make him like vary his offense. Okay, cool. So we have one more. The last one is going to be about Knockdown. So I think this one's probably like the most straightforward one of all of them, in that many people are familiar with like, oh, Baiken can parry your safe jump. That's the thing that makes people mad. Baiken can parry your safe jump. I understand, by the way, that's annoying. So okay, we all know this. Now, how do you make this impactful for your opponent? Because your opponent has to start doing like really weird stuff to stop you from the catch. They have to either I mean, if they have a projectile that they could put on you, it's GG's. You can't do anything. But if they have some type of meaty they want to do, they would have to delay it, which introduces other options to you. This is going to vary a lot by your character. You also want to think about risk return as well. I'll talk about risk return after, as the last thing. This one is probably like the most commonly understood one. I would say it's pretty similar to defense, but the only difference is I think it's more important because some characters get situations you don't want to be in, so you just want to show them that, hey, buddy, I'm not going to hold this pal type thing. Reminder too that she does have parry option select with both 6p and FD. This is 6p and this is FD. Okay, so you have that, and then here is 6p. You have those as your main go-tos. This forces your opponent to build Oki just for Baiken, and it's almost always something you can do to stop them. The only thing you'd have to think about is risk return, which I'm going to use a different character that made me start thinking about this a lot. So why Soul? Because Soul is one of the most downplayed characters from last patch. I learned this the hard way. Fool me once. Again, fool me once. What is it about Soul? Soul, if he hits you, you die. You die. Parry, let's do like, I don't know. He would never do a string like this. Let's just do like that or something. So this does 127 to Soul. If he does this and hits me, I'm dead. I am dead, right? So if you think about it from a risk return perspective, this is another reason why I think just parrying delay block strings is not that great. Characters like who's another character? Geo, for example. Geo does close slash 2s, does nothing. You mash parry. She does 5h super. You take like 70. Nah, 70 is over exaggerating. Like 50. Let's say 50. Like you take 50%, just like that. Honestly, it's more than 50%. You take a lot of damage. Soul, you die. And Soul specifically, I thought about it more because this knockdown right here, it's advantageous, but he has a DP, so you are gambling your life, your literal, like, the round against Soul to get a knockdown that doesn't kill him, that doesn't have Oki, that he could DP you off of and put you back in the same situation, right? So when you do that, that's why I'm so focused on like making sure you do parry in the spot where it's like really scary for the opponent and they can't vary what they do, because if not, then they're going to put you in a situation where parry is a big risk, an extra big risk. And it's easier to deal with parry from the, oh, I'm just doing delay button over and over perspective, for sure, right? However, we can't just think about it like that, because there is a situation where parry is just like GG's and extremely scary. So if the opponent is going to die, or you put him in a guess for game situation, you can take a crazy risk of parry. It's totally fine. But yeah, that's basically just like if you're trying to push the move and make it like really scary, this is another thing you could think about. This is one of the reasons why chip players don't like Baiken, because 3 parries kill him. He has a string with a gap in it, right? His kick in the sweep has a 1 frame gap. He does a lot of delay cancel stuff, and a lot of his stuff is minus. So when he's doing offense, he doesn't get a lot. He actually does not get that much return for like guessing right on parry, and her parry does about as much as most of his combos, right? She kills him in 3 parries. So it's a real stress for him. But for most characters, you wouldn't take that type of risk. So like against Soul, never like that. I would be a little bit more passive, use it for guess for game, things like that. Okay, any questions?